The first time I saw the photograph, I didn't remember taking it. The second time, I wasn't even sure the person inside it was me. Maybe that's where everything began. On an ordinary night, in an ordinary room, with nothing but the soft hum of the radiator and a stack of old boxes I shouldn't have opened. It's strange how the smallest decisions collapse into something larger, how a single moment, a single curiosity can unravel the quiet routine you built your life around. I'd been meaning to clear that corner for months. The boxes had lived there longer than I had, left behind by the previous tenant, or the one before that, labels half peeled, cardboard edges curling slightly with age. I always told myself I'd sort them when I had time. No one ever has time. We just have nights when we can't stand the silence anymore. That night, the silence felt heavy. My flat was too still, the kind of stillness that makes you aware of your own breathing. The radiator ticked quietly. The street outside was muted, a distant car passing, the soft hiss of tires on wet road. I don't remember deciding to move the boxes. One moment I was staring at them from the sofa. The next, I was dragging them into the center of the room, dust rising in pale threads under the ceiling light. Old papers, mismatched mugs, a tangle of yellowing extension cords, a cracked lamp, the kind of forgotten debris people leave behind when they move in a hurry, thinking they'll come back for it and never do. The photograph was buried in the second box, tucked between two paperback books with swollen, water-damaged pages. No frame, no envelope, just a single glossy print, face down. I don't know why I picked it up so carefully. Maybe part of me already understood that something was wrong. I turned it over. It was a picture of me. That was my first thought, clear and solid. My face, my hair, the slope of my nose, the faint line between my brows that only appears when I'm tired. I was sitting on the edge of a bed, shoulders slightly hunched, hands clasped loosely between my knees like I was waiting for someone to speak. The room in the photograph wasn't mine. The walls were a pale, faded green. There was a wardrobe in the corner with one door slightly open, a dark gap like a missing tooth. A single lamp on a bedside table cast a small circle of light. The bed I was sitting on had a patterned duvet I'd never seen before, some muted floral design from another decade. A thin curtain hung over a narrow window, and beyond it, darkness pressed against the glass. I stared at it for a long time, trying to place it. I've moved a few times, stayed with friends, cheap rooms, short leases, temporary spaces where you tell yourself it's just for now. But nothing about that room felt familiar, not in the way old places do. There was no echo of memory, no faint sense of recognition. It was like looking at a still frame from someone else's life with my face pasted into it. I flipped the photo over. Blank. No date, no handwriting, no printer marks, just smooth white paper. I checked the edges. No logo from a shop, no developer's stamp. I held it up to the light, turning it slightly, as if some hidden detail might emerge, something that would explain it. Nothing. That was the first time I saw the photograph. I put it aside on the coffee table, telling myself I'd figure it out later. I went back to the boxes, but I wasn't really looking anymore. My eyes kept flicking back to where it lay, that small rectangle of glossy wrongness on the scratched wood. It didn't make sense. I don't own a camera. The last time anyone took a physical photograph of me was... I couldn't even remember. Everything's digital now. Screens and pixels, not paper and chemicals. And yet there it was, solid and real under my fingertips. The second time I looked at it, something had changed. It was subtle, small enough that if I'd been less careful, I might have dismissed it. I picked the photo up, expecting the same scene, the same strange arrangement of unfamiliar furniture, and my own face stranded in the middle of it. My expression was different. In the first moment I'd seen it, my face had been neutral. Tired, maybe. A little distant. But now there was a tension there that hadn't been before, a slight tightening around the mouth, a faint crease at the corners of my eyes. My head was tilted just a little more, like I'd heard something, like someone had spoken my name. Everything else was the same. The lamp, the bed, the warped wardrobe door, the curtain over the window. But the more I stared, the more certain I became. I was not imagining it. The photograph had changed. I remembered the exact moment that realization settled in. It was like the room around me shifted sideways by an inch. The radiator's hum seemed louder. The corners of the room felt further away, darker somehow. My own reflection in the black TV screen looked wrong, like it was slightly behind my movements. I looked away, took a slow breath, told myself I was tired, that memory plays tricks, that I hadn't really studied it the first time, that I was just filling in gaps. I looked back. My hands in the photograph were no longer loosely clasped. My fingers were curled tighter, knuckles just beginning to stand out, as if I'd started to grip my own hands without realizing. My shoulders were higher, the muscles along my neck subtly tensed. The person in the photograph, me, looked like they were listening for something. That was the moment I felt it. That prickling at the back of my neck, the sense that the room you're in has changed while you weren't looking. Not in any obvious way. Just something. The air feels heavier. The shadows feel thicker. Sounds from outside seem too far away, like you've been sealed off from the rest of the world. I put the photograph down again. This time I didn't go back to the boxes. I just sat there on the floor, breathing too quietly, watching it. Minutes passed. The radiator clicked on and off. Somewhere upstairs, water ran through pipes, a neighbor turning on a tap or flushing a toilet. A car door slammed in the street. Everyday sounds, small and ordinary, but they felt distant, like they were happening in another city. I told myself not to pick it up again. I picked it up again. The photograph had changed more this time. There was no pretending otherwise. My head was turned further, angled slightly toward the wardrobe with the half-open door. My body had shifted on the bed, as if I was either about to stand up or had just sat down. The line of my jaw was tighter. My eyes, my own eyes printed on glossy paper, looked a fraction wider, pupils darker. In the sliver of open wardrobe behind me, in that narrow gap of shadow between door and frame, there was the suggestion of something else. Not a shape, not yet. Just a deepening of darkness, a thickness to it that didn't belong. I dropped the photograph. It fell face down on the floor with a soft, papery sound. I didn't move. You know that feeling when you realize all at once that you are very, very alone. Not the peaceful kind of alone, not the finally, some quiet alone. The kind of alone where you think, if something happens now, there is no one to see it, no one to hear it, no one to confirm it was real. The radiator ticked. The soft hum of the building returned in layers. The world pretended to be normal. I told myself not to touch it again. That's when I made the mistake. I didn't leave it there and walk away. I didn't slide it back into the box and tape it shut. I didn't burn it, or tear it, or drop it out of the window into the wet street below. Instead, I reached out, very slowly, picked it up between my thumb and forefinger, and turned it over. That's when the person I thought was me finally looked straight at the camera. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. My body in the photograph had turned fully toward the lens. I was no longer sitting tensely on the edge of the bed. I was sitting still, too still, hands flat on my knees, shoulders squared. My eyes were locked on the viewer. There was no confusion there now, no half-formed suspicion. There was only a quiet, hollow sort of dread. Behind me, in the wardrobe gap, the darkness had become a shape. It wasn't clear yet, more like an absence of light than anything distinct. But it was closer, pressing forward, the edges of the shadow soft and wrong, like smoke moving underwater. I was sure then, absolutely sure. The photograph was changing every time I looked away. I don't know how long I sat there, cycling between staring at it and forcing myself to look up to test the reality of what I was seeing. Each time I glanced back, something in the picture had shifted. Small at first, then larger. A crease in the bedsheet that hadn't been there before. The curtain at the window drawn a fraction tighter, as if someone had brushed past it. The lamp's light on the bedside table growing dimmer, the circle of illumination shrinking. And always, the thing in the wardrobe becoming just a little clearer. The fourth time I looked, I could see the outline of a shoulder, a hint of a head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if whoever or whatever was in there didn't fully understand how to wear a human shape. The fifth time, I saw fingers. They were long and too thin, resting lightly against the wardrobe door from the inside, as if testing the weight of it. There was something wrong with the way they curved, like they'd been copied from memory by someone who'd never actually held anything. My face in the photograph looked pale now. My mouth had parted slightly, as if I was about to say something, or had just said it, and the sound hadn't reached me yet. My eyes were still locked on the camera, only now they had that slightly unfocused look people get when they're listening very carefully to something behind them. The room around me, the real room, my flat, felt smaller. The corners seemed closer, the shadows deeper. Every noise, no matter how ordinary, felt too deliberate. The building's pipes groaned somewhere within the walls, and I flinched. A neighbor's door clicked shut down the hallway, and my heart lurched in my chest like I'd been caught doing something I shouldn't. I told myself to put the photograph down, to leave it, to go to bed and deal with it in the morning, when the light was different and my thoughts were cleaner. Instead, I did something worse. I went to get my phone. There's a particular kind of fear that only appears in the age of screens, the need to document something, to prove to yourself later that it happened, that you didn't dream it. That's what I told myself as I opened the camera app and pointed it at the print in my hand. My reflection hovered faintly on the black bezel around the screen. The phone's light cast a soft glow across the room, adding a cold layer over the warm lamp. I took a picture of the picture. For a second, nothing happened. The shutter sound snapped, the screen flickered, and there it was, a digital replica of the photograph nested on my phone. My thumb trembled slightly as I tapped the gallery icon to view it. The image loaded. In the phone's version, the wardrobe door in the background was open wider, not in the print I was holding. In that one, the gap was still narrow, the thing behind it still a collection of half-formed shadows and two long fingers. But on my phone, the door had opened another few inches, and whatever was inside had stepped closer to the edge of the frame. I could see a hint of a face now. Or not a face, exactly. Just the suggestion of one, like someone had pressed their features into black fabric and then pulled away, leaving an impression. The eyes were the worst part. Too round, too focused. Fixed not on the version of me sitting on the bed, but on the camera itself. On me. My stomach tightened. I lowered the phone slowly and looked back at the print in my hand, almost afraid the changes would have synced, that the image would have updated itself in real time like a live feed. It hadn't. The print was still one step behind. In that moment, I understood something I'd been trying not to think about. The photograph wasn't just changing. It was progressing. Each time I looked, each time I checked, I wasn't catching it in a random state, as if it were shuffling through possibilities, but in the next moment of some continuous sequence, like a paused video inching forward frame by frame every time I blinked. And now I had two versions, one in my hand, one on my phone. I don't know why, but that terrified me more than anything else. The urge to look again became almost painful. Curiosity and dread twisted together. I put the print on the table and took a step back, arms crossed tightly over my chest as if I could hold myself still by force. My eyes burned. I wanted to blink, to look away, to stop feeding it. Because that's what it felt like. Feeding something. Every glance a small offering. Every check a little more attention poured into whatever it was that had found me. I lasted maybe 30 seconds. I picked up the phone first. The wardrobe door was fully open now. The me in the photograph was no longer on the bed. I was standing beside it, body turned halfway toward the wardrobe, caught in the act of moving. My shoulders were hunched, as if I'd drawn them up without realizing. One hand was slightly raised, fingers spread, as if reaching for something or warding it off. And in the dark space of the wardrobe, the figure had stepped into full view. It was tall, taller than me. Its limbs were wrong, joints slightly off, like a mannequin that had been assembled in a hurry. Its head was tilted too far to one side, neck bending at an angle that should have broken bone. Its skin, if you could call it that, didn't have texture so much as an absence of it, a smooth, swallowing darkness that refused to catch the light. But it was the way it looked at the camera that froze me. Not the version of me in the room, not the bed, not the wardrobe it had just stepped out of. It was looking straight out of the photograph, straight at whoever was holding the phone, straight at me. I didn't realize I'd made a sound until my throat ached. A quiet noise, half breath and half plea. I lowered the phone with shaking hands and snatched up the print instead, desperate to see where that version was in the sequence, whether it had caught up or was still lagging behind. In the physical photograph, I was still on the bed. I exhaled, a shaky, half-laughing breath that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Relief and horror tangled together. If the phone was ahead, if the digital version was 1 or 2 moments beyond the print, then I was being shown what would happen next. I should have stopped. I know that. Looking back now, telling you this, it's the part that sticks in my mind the most. Because that was the last point where I could have chosen to walk away and still pretend this was all some strange, sleepless hallucination. A trick of memory, a tired brain misfiring. Instead, I did exactly what it wanted me to do. I looked again. Each check pushed the sequence forward. On the print, I rose slowly from the bed. On the phone, I moved closer to the wardrobe. The thing inside unfolded itself step by step, too patient, too deliberate, as if it knew I couldn't help but keep watching. The lamp's light dimmed, shadows stretching across the carpet like spilled ink. The window behind the thin curtain showed nothing now, not even darkness, just a flat, depthless black. At some point, the radiator in my own flat switched off. The room grew cold without me noticing. My breath fogged faintly in the air, but I was too fixated on the glossy rectangle in my hands and the screen in front of me to care. In one frame, my hand reached out, fingers trembling, as if to touch the wardrobe door. In the next, they hovered in empty air. In the one after that, they were inches from the figure's chest, from that smooth, absorbing knot skin. By the time the sequence on my phone showed the thing lifting its own hand toward mine, mirror-like, I realized my real hand was raised too, not toward a wardrobe, toward the empty corner of my own room. There was nothing there, just the wall, the faint outline where a picture had once hung before I moved in. The boxes I'd dragged out sat at my feet, forgotten. The only thing in front of me was air. And yet, for a heartbeat, I swear I felt something just beyond my fingertips. A chill, like standing too close to a fridge with the door open. A weight, like being watched from inches away. A pull, soft and insistent, like someone breathing in very quietly, waiting for you to step closer. I dropped both the phone and the photograph. The phone hit the floor with a dull clack, screen going dark. The photograph fluttered down beside it, face up, landing at an angle that showed only part of the image. Enough to see that in that frame, the me in the picture was no longer looking at the camera. I was looking at the thing, and the thing, still half turned toward me, had begun to smile. I backed away, 1 step, 2, until my calves hit the sofa. I sat down hard. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The room felt blurred at the edges, like a picture losing resolution. I stared at the fallen photograph, at the dark shape emerging from the wardrobe in that other room, and for the first time, I had a clear, simple thought. This isn't a memory. Whatever that photograph was showing me, it wasn't something that had happened. It was something that was trying to happen. I don't remember standing up again, but I must have. At some point, I crossed the room, heart thudding in my throat, every instinct screaming at me not to get closer and yet knowing I had to do something. I didn't trust myself to pick it up anymore, not with my bare hands. So I grabbed a book from the box, a swollen, water-damaged paperback whose title I didn't even read, and used it to slide the photograph across the floor. It scraped softly, face down now, that glossy side kissing the wood. I didn't care about the phone, not yet. I bent down, snatched the print and the book together, and carried them across the room like something venomous, keeping my arms locked straight out in front of me. The rubbish bin in the kitchen had one of those swinging lids. I shoved the photograph in, book and all, with enough force to send the lid clattering against the rim. The sound made me flinch. Then I stood there, both hands pressed flat to the counter, staring at the bin, waiting. Nothing moved. The lid swayed once, twice, then settled. The radiator stayed silent. The flat remained exactly as it had been a moment before, as if nothing had changed at all, except it had, not out here. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. The sound made every muscle in my body seize. I fumbled it out with clumsy fingers, screen lighting up my face with cold, pale glow. One new notification. Gallery. One new image backed up. My heart stuttered. I opened the app. The photograph stared back at me. Not the one I'd last seen on the floor. Not the one where I was reaching toward that thing, hand hovering just inches from its chest. This one was different. In this version, the room was empty. No bed, no wardrobe, no lamp, no version of me caught halfway between sitting and standing. Just that pale green wall, bare and unadorned. The floor, scuffed and unremarkable. The window, curtain gone. And in the middle of the frame, perfectly centered, was the thing that had been in the wardrobe. Closer than before. Closer than the lens should have been able to focus. Every part of it sharp now, every wrong angle and too long limb and not skin rendered with awful clarity. It filled the frame like it had stepped right up against the glass. It wasn't looking into the room. It was looking out. Straight at whoever had opened the picture. Straight at me. There was no sequence this time. No sense of frames progressing. No before or after. Just that single image, frozen. Waiting. The tiny icon in the corner of the screen showed it had been backed up to the cloud automatically, like any other photo. Stored, duplicated, preserved, safe. I stood there for a long time, the world narrowing to the cold rectangle in my hand and the impossible thing on the screen. A thought crept in slowly, uninvited, threading itself between the pounding of my heartbeat and the shallow rush of my breath. A photograph is a way of holding on to a moment, capturing it, keeping it alive. What happens to something that was never supposed to be captured? What happens when you don't just look at it, but save it, copy it, share it, let it live in more than one place at once? I don't remember deleting it. I must have tried. My thumb moved, the icon flickered. A warning popped up, asking if I was sure. I don't remember what I pressed. I don't remember if it worked. All I know is that sometimes late at night, when the radiator falls silent and the flat feels too big, my phone lights up on its own. Just for a second. A faint glow from the table beside my bed. And when I pick it up, breathing quietly in the dark, there's nothing there. No notification, no missed call, no message. Just a faint ghost image on the black screen if I tilt it just right. Like a reflection that isn't mine. Like something standing very close, just out of frame. Waiting for me to open the gallery. Waiting for me to look again. So if you've ever found a photograph you don't remember taking, one where the room doesn't look quite right, or your expression seems a little off, or there's a shadow in the background that doesn't belong, don't do what I did. Don't keep checking it. Don't copy it. Don't drag it into the safety of your devices and tell yourself it's just pixels, just data, just another image floating in the cloud with millions of others. Because some things are patient, some things learn, and some things only need you to look at them long enough to step out of the moment they're trapped in and into yours.